Hello and welcome everybody. Today we are continuing studying the Falkbeer counter gambit, and I would like to carry on with the games played by the classical players of the last century. I would say already the games which were played between the 1850 and 1925. I would say this is a classical opening at that time, where King's Gambit was still quite popular, and only after the Falkbeer Gambit becomes a real weapon for black, the King's Gambit lost his popularity, and now we can understand why. The first game between Rosanes and Adolf Andersen was played in Breslau match 1862 and started with e4, e5, f4, d5, e takes d5, and e4. As I said in our previous lesson, so black's main idea not only to lock the f file, which is one of the most important threats in white's position. So white usually in the King's Gambit trying to look towards the black's pawn on f7. Also, these moves e4 prevents white's knight from coming to f3. So white's kingside development is quite destroyed, I would say. In that game, Rosanes decided to play bishop b5, trying to force black to exchange some pieces. Indeed, Andersen just answered with c6, offering the real sacrifice. So after c6, d takes c6, and knight takes c6, black is having pawn down. Indeed, all his pieces very active. The pawn on e4 also, not allowing white, as I said before, to complete his development. Also, black is intending to bring the bishop to c5. Knight comes to f6. Bishop could go also to g4 to f5. So black is having quite easy developing all his forces. Knight c3. Knight f6 and queen e2. I cannot recommend this way of playing. So white is trying to win e4 pawn, but this would lead only to the complete opening position, where black's more active pieces much more important than material advantage. And of course, Andersen is not thinking even for a second for protecting this pawn on e4. So he's just ready to sacrifice. So he's just playing bishop c5, bringing his bishop to the most, I would say, aggressive diagonal. And after knight takes e4, instead capture on e4, just simply castling, short castling. And I believe that this move was a serious surprise for his opponent. Only now Rosanes realized that knight takes c5 cannot be played, because after rook e8 black is getting decisive material advantage. So instead he decided to play bishop takes c6. B takes c6 only opens additional files and diagonals for black. And d3. How black should continue his attack? How to keep initiative? So, of course, black cannot play immediately bishop g4. Look, white is having intermediate move, knight takes f6 check, and only then queen comes to g4, winning a piece, and quite difficult now for black to create any serious threats. So instead, we first of all bring the rook to the open file. Rook e8. Now, once again, the tactical nuance. White cannot capture an f6. Not because queen takes f6, which would lose immediately after queen takes e8, checkmate, but surprising move g takes f6 leaves white's queen and king on the e file. So white is losing in that case. So after rook e8, white has to continue bishop d2, trying to prepare the long castling. Indeed, even there on the queen side, white's king cannot find the rest. Knight takes e4. D takes e4. And bishop f5. Definitely, black's main aim is even not e pawn, but most important for us just to bring all our pieces into the game. So move bishop a5, force white to play e5. And after queen b6, black is also intending, I would say this is quite standard double attack which we studied already from Danish Gambit, from Scotch Gambit, and even from Evans Gambit. So at the same time, black is intending b2 and g1 knight. This move, queen b6, is almost forced white to move his king to the queen side. Since after knight f3 and queen takes b2, black is reaching the material advantage almost very soon. Next, queen takes c2, queen takes a2, when white's king still cannot find any good place. Pay attention that short castling is not possible forever. So, long castling more or less forced, and now we can realize that after rook a to b8, black is having super strong attack on the queen side, because white pieces are still not developed. So instead playing rook b8 immediately, Anderson played bishop d4, intending already b2 pawn. What can we say? We can say that b3 is losing its spot after queen c5, intending also checkmate and also checkmate in 2 after queen a3. Let's say c3 or c4, queen a3, and this is a checkmate immediate. Or if white plays some move like bishop e1, what black can do? Black can even play queen a3 with a decisive attack, not talking even about move bishop take g1 winning the material. So b3 not possible. White forced to play c3. But then black is bringing one more piece to the game. Rook b8. White forced to play b3. Now I ask here, usually, how we can continue. So black pieces look so strong. Bishops are very active, completely open position. So white's king looks in big trouble. Indeed, it's not so easy to find here the decisive continuation. When we look at the positions, the most natural continuation, of course, is queen a5, intending not only bishop takes c3, but also queen a3 checkmate. Indeed, after king b2, position is still playable for white. So there is no direct threat. White is also intending to capture the bishop after c takes d4. Not so easy. Adolf Andersen, one of the strongest players in that years, found quite nice solution. And look at that move. Rook e to d8. Wow, you can say. First of all, we can realize that white cannot takes the bishop after queen takes d4. Black is intending to checkmate in one, and probably no any solution, no any defense for white. Bishop e3 will be met by queen a5, queen a1 with a checkmate. So when bishop is is completely untouchable, white has to bring his knight to the game, knight f3. And here comes the shot. Black is having now all his pieces in the game. Last rook captured the open file. So we are ready for the decisive. Queen takes b3, completely ruins white's position. Look at the b1 square. Black is aiming the checkmate there. A takes b3 and rook takes b3. For a second, black is having queen down. Indeed, white cannot save the game anymore. Let's understand why. Black is intending rook b1 check. The only serious defense against this threat is just to free for a king the d2 square, trying to escape. And now we can understand the key idea of the rook d8 move. So black is playing discovery check, bishop e3, taking the last escape from white's king. So white cannot move his king anymore to d2. After queen takes e3, black is having queen and a piece down, but white's king will be checked after rook b1. Game is over. So doesn't change anything, move like knight d2 or bishop d2 once again, because rook b1, and in that variation the knight on d2 is just hanging. So this is one of the brilliant games played with the Falkbeer contour gambit. And once again, Adolf Andersen showed us the real mastery of how to manage the initiative and how to convert great development advantage into the mating attack. I would like to go on with next game played by Zygmunt Taras in 1879 against von Schewe in Breslau match. And that game is also started with King's Gambit, when Taras chose Falkbeer counter gambit, looking for active counter attack. E takes d5 and e4. Despite the fact that already this opening line was quite popular and quite famous, and already many games were played, in that game, von Schewe, Taras opening, decided just to protect the pawn. So after e4, he decided to move his c pawn, supporting the d5 pawn. What is the most natural answer here? I believe you have no problem to find it. Just c6. We are ready to sacrifice and to obtain clear superiority in the center, and all our pieces in case of d takes c6 and knight takes c6 would reach the greatest outpost in the center. So bishop comes to c5, intending queen d4, knight comes to f6. White is also having backward pawn on d2. No big question how to evaluate this position. So black is definitely better, even with the pawn down. So after c6, white continued knight c3, and black is moving his knight to f6, of course, exposed some more pressure over the d5 pawn. d3, bishop b4. Once again, follow Morphy. Tarrasch also played bishop b4 move, which is not only pins knight on c3, but also wins the battle over the e4 square. Now, I would say white already is in not so nice position. Why? D takes c6, knight takes c6, black is doing very good. D takes e4 could be met once again with knight takes e4, and black is intending also to capture on c3, also queen h4 check, and of course short casting, bringing his rook on the open file. White's king is still in the center. So in that case, white decided to bring his queen to b3, trying to force black exchanging his dark square bishop, and after bishop takes c3 to play b takes c3. Indeed, white lost already so many tempi. After short castling, black is not only intending c takes d5, but also rook e8. White in real trouble. D takes e4, knight takes e4. Now we can realize that move like knight f3 will be met by rook e8, and black is having great position. Also intending knight c5, also intending c takes d5. But what was played here, bishop d3, I can't recommend, of course. This move probably blunder. Why? Because after queen h4 check, white is having no solution against this. g3, knight takes g3. Typical tactical nuance. Once again, white cannot capture on g3 because h1 rook is hanging. After knight f3, Tarrasch played simply queen h5. And rook g1, queen takes f3, rook takes g3. Somehow it looks that white solved his problem, but only for a second. After rook e8 check, white's king will be mated very soon. After king d2 and queen f2, black is completing his task by rook e1 with a checkmate. So just 15 moves. So short game, but shows how dangerous for white here, trying to keep the material advantage and to play c4. When you play against gambit or even against counter gambit, you have to look after threats of your opponent, trying to prevent him to obtaining, reaching, gaining the big positional advantage as a development. So development advantage is also decisive factor in all these gambit lines. So try to watch out, try to develop your pieces first of all. Don't think about the material. I would say that for 20, 30 years since all these games were played, there were quite a lot of analysis of how to stop black's initiative in Falkbeer line, how to find some advantage for white in all these lines. And Rudolf Spielmann, one of the most famous players of the King's Gambit, prepared novelty against his opponent Siegbert Tarrasch in Maid-Rich Astral tournament in 1923, and this game I would like to show you next. e4, e5, f4. Spielmann is playing his famous King's Gambit. d5, and Tarrasch is playing the Falkbeer counterattack. E takes d5, e4. So after we looked already for so many games of different examples of how to play with, I would say how not to play with white. Finally, let's understand what is the main targets for white in this position. So after d3, this move becomes most popular, of course. So white is trying immediately exchange this pawn on e4. Black cannot answer in queen takes d5, since after knight c3 we have to spend time for not losing pawn on e4. Let's say after bishop b4 and bishop d2, bishop takes c3 and bishop takes c3. Funny, but white is getting here slightly better position in case of knight f6 and d takes e4, having two bishops and no serious development advantage for black. White could, I would say, be very happy with the outcome. Of course, black is not playing the Falkbeer gambit for just trying to win back this pawn on d5. So instead, Tarrasch, of course, following the main idea of the gambit lines, just rapid development, knight f6, taking control, looking at e4 pawn, d takes e4, and knight takes e4. This knight is somehow looks a bit hanging in many lines because white has some opportunity to play queen e2, but as we can see later on, black is having enough tactical resources to destroy white's tactical idea. Knight f3, bishop c5, and this line was one of the, I would say, main theoretical variations which promised white quite good game after queen e2. Now, in case black is playing short castling, queen takes e4 and rook e8, white is having enough resources after knight e5, because black has to spend a lot of time and energy to win back this knight after f6. In that case, white could also play bishop d3, continue his attack, intending h7 pawn. So clear that short castling doesn't work in that situation. So knight can be captured in that case. Tarrasch played bishop f5, which looks extremely dangerous move. Why? Seems like after g4, nothing could help e4 knight. According to the old theory, and the game was played in 1923, the g4 was recommended by books, and the theoreticians say that black is in danger. So maybe this line could destroy and close all the black's opening, this counter gambit of Falkbeer. Indeed, Tarrasch prepared in his home library great counter-attacking move. So instead of playing bishop take g4 or bishop g6, he came with a big surprise. Short castling only here. Instead sacrificing his knight on e4, he is ready to sacrifice his bishop on f5, but to reach the e8 square with his rook. After g takes f5, So white has no any other moves. Otherwise rook e8 is coming. And rook e8. White is having extra piece, but look what happened now. Move like knight e5 is losing immediately after queen h4 check. After king d1 and knight f2, game is over. Pay attention. King d2, queen takes f4, and e5, knight is gone. Instead losing, black is winning. So white cannot play knight e5 anymore. Bishop g2, trying to force black moving knight to g3 or to c3. In that case, black is winning the queen, but after knight takes c3, rook takes e2, and king takes e2, let's compare. This material disbalance for white's favor. White is having two pieces and rook for queen, and definitely better position. So we can very fast move all our pieces into the game. Bishop d2, rook e1, and then get with the king away from the center after king d1, and white would get much better, even winning position probably. So black has to keep the initiative. So this knight on e4 is a key piece. Knight f2 we are playing instead. Also intending queen, also intending rook. So white is almost forced to play knight e5. Knight takes h1, bishop takes h1, and once again white is trying to force black playing f6. In that case, I believe Tarrasch would win this knight on e5. Indeed, white would complete his development and position remains very, very unclear. That's why much better just knight d7. Black is trying not just to win the knight on e5, but to open up the position, because white's king is still in the center. So very, very important to open the file. As I said before, f6 could be made by a move like bishop e3. Bishop takes e3, queen takes e3, and after f takes and f takes, look, position remains very unclear. White is having strong center, and everything is just for one exchange. If white would succeed to bring his knight to c3 and then long castling, position would become very unclear. Maybe white even could pretend on some advantage. So knight d7 is very powerful continuation. Only after knight c3, black is playing f6. So in that case, bishop e3 is not possible. Why? Because bishop on c5 is protected. Knight e4. F takes e5. So now white cannot capture f takes e5 because simply rook takes e5. Black is simply winning. Only chance to keep his center is just to trade black's bishop after knight takes c5. Spielmann understood already that if he would continue playing normal way, nothing could help him. So this is only try to mix up things after knight takes c5, knight takes c5, and f takes e5. White is having three great pawns in the center. Indeed, black is having decisive positional advantage. White is having two bishops, center, but his king is still in the center, and black is having much better development. Not a big surprise that game is finishing very soon. Queen h4 check. First of all, white cannot play queen f2 because pawn on e5 is hanging. Just rook takes e5. Game is over. So it leaves white with one alternative to play king f1. But now rook f8. Black is moving his rook to the open file. So second rook will be ready to attack white center from e8 square. And White forced now to play King G1. Queen D4 check. Bishop A3. Queen takes E5. So important, most important, the key pawn on E5 is gone. And still white cannot capture the bishop on this bishop, the knight on C5, because simply queen takes E2. You can ask, why not just to play here queen E3? The problem is same. After queen D1 check, white has no time to move in the game his rook and a bishop. After king G2 and rook takes F5, black is getting decisive advantage. Queen takes C5 will be met by queen F3 check and queen F1 checkmate. Game is over. So Spielman decided to play bishop E3, queen takes E5, rook E1. So black is having not only decisive material advantage, but also positionally black is much better now. Knight G7, queen C4, king H8, one more move, rook to E8, and white will have no pieces just to continue the fight. Bishop E4, rook A to E8, bishop D4, last chance, but black is just playing very safe. Queen F4, rook E2, quite a cheap trick. So now in case of rook takes E4, rook takes E4 and queen takes F4, black is even losing after discovering check bishop take G7 and the queen E4 is gone. So to avoiding any business with that two bishops, Tarrasch just decided to play simple move, knight F6, force black to exchange one of the bishops. Otherwise, black would trade rooks and of course game is over. So after bishop takes F6, G takes F6, white is having just pawn for exchange. Indeed, his king is completely opened. After H3 and rook G8 check, Spielman resigned in just 26 moves. Siegbert Tarrasch beat Rudolf Spielman, one of the best players in the King's Gambit. Thanks everybody for watching. Follow the third part of the Falkbeer Gambit next week, and if you have any question, you can ask me by sending your message on my website www.chesslessons.wordpress.com, where you can ask questions and watch some scripts from my lesson, from my lectures. See you and bye.